So last week I went ahead and I started giving out some tips to beginners to the wonderful world of film photography. Be sure to check out that video before watching this one. I highly recommend it. Well, I'm back this week with a few more tips that I'm excited to talk about, and most of these involve things that happen after the shooting process. Because just like digital film, photography is not done once you've taken the photo. There are things that need to happen in order for those photos to see the world and be appreciated. So, you know what? Let's just jump in. Finding a photo lab that you trust is a crucial part of your film photography journey. Developing your film is only half the battle. How your negatives are scanned can greatly affect the final look of your images. A good scan can bring out the true character of your photos, while a poor one can make them look flat, dull, or even distort the colors and tones, giving you a false sense of what you actually captured. So I recommend starting by researching local labs in your area or online that have good reviews and a reputation for handling film carefully. Look for labs that offer consistent quality, a variety of scanning options, and transparency about their entire process. Some labs provide standard scans, which are great for quick results, while others offer premium options or custom scans that allow you to fine-tune details like color balance and contrast. And accessibility is also super important and something to definitely consider. If you have a local lab that's close enough to you, I recommend checking them out, and it's worth visiting them in person to discuss your needs and get a feel for their services. Building a relationship with your lab can be incredibly valuable. They'll start to understand your preferences, and they can offer personalized advice and even fix minor issues with your scans. And if a local lab isn't an option for you, there are a few reputable mail-in services that I have heard good things about. I've never personally gone this route, but while mailing your film may feel nerve-wracking at first, many of these labs have systems in place to track your order and ensure that everything gets back to you safely. Ultimately, the lab that you choose is going to become a partner in your creative process. It's an often overlooked sentiment in a lot of these film shooting tip videos, and something that I think I need to hammer home. Because their work affects how your images are developed, scanned, and presented, so finding one that aligns with your expectations is a key. So take your time, experiment, and don't hesitate to ask questions. It's all part of the learning process. One of the most rewarding aspects of shooting film is the ability to create a tangible archive of your photography. Your negatives are the physical record of every photo that you've taken, and unlike digital files, they aren't vulnerable to accidental deletion or hard drive crashes. They are, however, vulnerable to house fires. Because of this, it's essential to keep your negatives safe and organized. You never know when you might need to revisit them, whether you need to make new scans, prints, or simply rediscover some of your past work. Properly storing your negatives is the first step in preserving them. Invest in archival quality sleeves or binders to protect them from dust, scratches, and environmental damage. Many photographers, myself included, use clear plastic or paper sleeves that can fit into standard 3-ring binders, allowing for easy labeling and accessibility. Also, make it a habit to label each roll with key details, such as the date, location, or subject of the shoot, so you could find specific images later on without too much hassle. And having a digital organizational system is just as important as proper negative storage. Whether you organize your photos chronologically or by project or by theme, find a system that works for you and stick to it from the beginning. Early on in my film shooting career, I had an absolutely abysmal organization technique, and for about a year, it was incredibly difficult for me to find any specific photo that I had taken, and I really wish that in the beginning, I'd started out with an established organization technique, so I really thought it was imperative to mention it here. Preserving your negatives isn't just about functionality, it's also about building a lasting archive of your work. Decades from now, all of those negatives are going to remain a piece of your creative legacy and a reminder of your growth as a photographer and a source of inspiration for future projects. And in an era where so much of our media feels ephemeral, having a physical archive is one of the unique joys of shooting film. So take care of your negatives, and they'll take care of your memories. There's often a stigma around digitally editing photos, with some purists insisting that you should only show the raw scans of your image. And this viewpoint is rooted in a desire to preserve the authenticity of film, But I believe that the beauty of photography, whether it's film or digital, is in the creative process, and that includes editing. Over time, I have noticed this stigma fading quite a bit as more people recognize that editing is simply part of bringing your vision to life, regardless of the medium that you're working with. Personally, I'm a big advocate for blocking out unnecessary societal expectations and forging your own path when it comes to how you present your work. Film is a beautiful medium, but it's not perfect right out of the scanner. Even the most well-exposed negatives can benefit from a little adjustment in post-processing. Whether it's fine-tuning the exposure, adjusting the contrast, or making subtle color corrections, editing can help you enhance the emotional impact of your photos and bring out the full potential of your negatives. Editing doesn't mean drastically altering the integrity of your image. It's about refining it to match your artistic intent. Think of it as the digital equivalent of the darkroom process, where you have the opportunity to crop, adjust, or enhance your image just as you would in the physical world with enlargers and filters. The key is to approach editing with the mindset of enhancing, not transforming. And what's important is that you're comfortable with your choices. If you love the look of your raw, unedited scans, that's completely valid. But if you feel like a little digital touch-up brings your image closer to what you envisioned when you took the photo, don't hesitate to embrace that. One of the most important things to remember as a beginner to film photography is that mistakes are a natural part of the learning process. Whether it's a roll that accidentally gets underexposed, a blurry photo due to your shaky hands, or misfocus, everyone makes mistakes, especially when you're starting out. I know for a fact I made plenty of them, and I still make them to this day. But instead of getting discouraged, try to embrace these moments as part of your growth as a photographer. Film is a medium that invites experimentation, and with it comes a little bit of trial and error. And unlike digital, where you can instantly see your results, film often requires you to wait until the film is developed to see how your exposure, composition, and technique actually turned out. And this delay in the process can sometimes be frustrating, but it also teaches patience and mindfulness in your craft. And when things go wrong, it's easy to feel defeated. But don't let those moments of imperfection define your entire experience. Instead, try to view every mistake as an opportunity to learn. And I know that's easier said than done. Maybe you didn't adjust the exposure properly, or you forgot to change the settings when you loaded a new roll of film into your camera, but these are all lessons in disguise. The more you shoot, the more you'll begin to recognize patterns, understand your camera's quirks, and anticipate how film reacts in different lighting conditions. Over time, your confidence and technical skills will grow, and what once felt like a mistake will become a valuable part of your journey. It's also worth noting that some mistakes can actually lead to some happy accidents. Film photography, you probably have noticed, has this unique charm because of its unpredictability. Sometimes an unintentional overexposure or a slight motion blur can add a sense of mood or atmosphere to an image that you might not have achieved otherwise. These quote-unquote mistakes can often become the most cherished photos in your collection, teaching you that perfection isn't always the goal. Creativity and expression are. So when mistakes do happen, don't let them discourage you. They're part of the process, and every experienced film shooter has faced them at one point or another. When you're starting out with film photography, it's important to slow down and be patient. Unlike digital photography, where you can quickly snap countless of photos and review them right away, film requires a more deliberate approach. You only have a limited number of exposures per roll, so each shot becomes a little bit more precious. This gives you the opportunity to focus on the details, composition, exposure, and lighting before you press the shutter button. So take the time to think through your settings and how they'll affect the final image. Adjusting your aperture, your shutter speed, your focus with intention will help you understand how these elements work together to capture the scene exactly as you want it. And remember, film photography is as much about the process as it is about the final image, so savor each moment and try to enjoy the experience. One of the most exciting aspects of film photography is the endless opportunity for experimentation. It's easy to fall into a comfortable routine, sticking with the same film stock, the same camera, the same lenses that you use all the time, shooting in familiar environments. While this can produce beautiful work, it could also limit your creative growth. If you find yourself stuck in a creative rut, it's time to step out of your comfort zone and try something new. If you're watching this video, you're already doing that by starting with this whole thing to begin with. So why not continue that trend? Experimenting with different film stocks, unique camera formats, or shooting in unconventional lighting conditions can offer results that are surprising and inspiring. A great example of this is my experience with infrared photography. Last year, I decided to dive into a type of photography I knew very little about. The results were nothing short of thrilling, and I found myself deeply passionate about it. Shooting with infrared film opened up an entirely new way of seeing the world, and the images I captured were unlike anything I had ever experienced before. It was a healthy reminder that sometimes the most exciting discoveries come when you least expect them. So whether you're trying a new film stock, experimenting with alternative processes, or venturing into unfamiliar genres, don't be afraid to step outside the box. It could be a lot of fun. The beauty of film photography lies in its potential for discovery. So go out, do your research. Don't get me wrong, do your research and give something new a shot, because you never know where it might lead, and you just might find yourself inspired by the unexpected results. And that's going to do it for part 2 of my tips for beginners to film photography. I really hope that you all found this useful. As always, I'm incredibly easy to reach, so feel free to drop a line and ask me whatever questions that you have. There are no stupid questions, so feel free to ask them all. I'm happy to help. But also head down to the comments and let me know what I missed in terms of tips for people who are starting out in film photography, because I know that I left stuff out. I know it. This is a huge topic and there is way too much to cover, so be gentle in the comments. I know that I left certain things out. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified when new videos are released on this channel. You can support me by becoming a member, finding that join button, and you could also support me by going to my print shop and consider buying a print of my work. You could also buy a copy of my novel. It's called Ultra Boys. I self-published it last summer, and I promise I'm only going to be mentioning it a few more times this year. But yeah, it would really help me out if you would consider buying a copy of that book and reading my writing. Feel free to follow me on all social media. All the links will be down in the description. I hope you all are doing great in 2025 so far. I'm excited to hear from you, and I'll see you all next time.